It is good to be back after some time away, just taking some vacation. I appreciate Jeff Shockley stepping in last week and delivering a great message. This morning you're going to hear from someone else that's not normally up here, and that's Scott Green. We're going to be talking about Master of the Exodus. I'll give you a little warning. I've been thinking about something and rolling it in my mind, so be prepared. I think I should mention it now, so it won't be such a shock. I've been thinking about an idea that I'm calling, I don't know what I'll call it, No Cell Phone Sunday. That's why I'm mentioning, I want you to think about it for the next 7 or 8 years before we actually do this. And it might be in conjunction with another idea I've had, and I think they may need to be on the same day. Paper Bible Sunday. Actually remember these things? They were, so think about that. We may have a special day where I'm asking everybody to bring one of these. Call your great-grandfather or something. They could probably have one of these. So bringing a Bible and no cell phones, is that even workable? Is it doable? Is it unreasonable to ask? Of course it is. That's why the idea came through my mind. But I want you to start thinking about it. And one thing I'm thinking about is this. There's no substitute for getting into this Word. I know a lot of people access the Word through your cell phones. You say, so why would you ask us not to leave our cell phones? Well, I can't tell you right now, but I'm working on rolling that around. The biggest emphasis is this. Whether you access the Bible through a phone or through paper, access the Bible. Open it. Study it. Study after study shows that we are becoming more and more biblically illiterate. I'm thankful we're a little bit ahead of the curve in churches of Christ. That's good. What's sad is that we are a little bit ahead of the curve. We used to really be known as people who know our Bibles. I'm thinking maybe not so much these days. That would be a shame if that were true. I encourage us all to go into the Word. Master of the Exodus was an intense study of the Word, particularly, let's see, the book of Exodus, right? Yes, the book of Exodus, and it was done among our young people. Some of you may remember hearing about this or some of the announcements, but wanted to just take a few moments here and share with you what that was about, what some of our young people did, and maybe we can be inspired by them. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Green to tell you more about this.
Pray with me for just a minute, please. Lord Jesus, we thank you for this wonderful day. When we are not only coming to worship you as the complete body, but a day when we get to acknowledge the biblical studies and hard work of our youth. Today is about glorifying you only, by giving you praises for the gifts and the blessings we have received from you. Lord, as we continue in this service, may we keep our hearts with those who could not be here with us today. Those who are maybe traveling, we pray that they will receive your traveling mercies and protections upon them. Lord, we ask for your healing hand upon those who are experiencing an illness or battling trials in their lives. Lord, I pray that we, the church, would do what we can to move this world in a positive direction. Lord, please bless the endeavors of the work performed by this body and the many other congregations in this area and throughout the world. Lord, please be with our leadership, local, state, and federal governments. And Lord, please be with those who are on the battlefield right now, defending the freedoms of the greatest country you continue to bless, the United States of America. Lord, I ask all this in your most holy name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Well, it has been a while, at least 5 years since I've gotten up and spoken to a congregation. And this morning, I know some of you were sitting in here thinking I was losing my mind because I came up here and I was talking to myself. And I have lost my mind according to my wife. You can ask her about that. She's trying to give me treatment. But, and that was supposed to be funny. Thank you. But anyway, well, good morning, church. let's talk a little bit about the Master of the Exodus. But before we get started, I was telling some of the guys that were greeting people as they were coming through the door, first 5 minutes of any time I speak, I usually get a little nervous. My hands are sweaty, my heart's pounding pretty bad. So I like to tell a joke. And I like to get everybody in the right frame of mind. Because today we're going to do some celebrating. I want you to be open to it. I want you to enjoy it today. And we're going to talk a little bit about what these youth have done. So here's the joke. If you don't laugh, that's okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings. But I think you're going to laugh at this one. So there was this lady. She walks into this church. She comes in through the back. She sees the ushers, if you will. And they see that she's kind of looking around, canvassing the area. And one of them comes up. It's a deacon. And he says to her, he says, ma'am, he says, I can see that you're trying to find a place to sit. Can I help you find a place to sit? She says, oh, well, thank you. She said, I would like to sit as close to the preacher as I can possibly get. And he looks at her and says, well, ma'am, I would advise you against that. She looks at him with a perplexed look, but again, makes the request. I would like to sit, as close to the preacher as I can get. In fact, I want to be on the front row. He says, ma'am, you don't want to do that. She once again makes the request. She says, I not only want to sit on the front row, I want to sit right in front of the preacher. The deacon thought about it for a second, came back to her and said, ma'am, I'm telling you, I'm going to be honest with you, our preacher is extremely dull, he's boring, you might fall asleep, you could fall on the pew, you'll embarrass yourself, and plus he projects while he preaches. You don't want to do that. She says to him with a perplexed look again, do you know who I am? He says, complexing, no. She says, well, I'm the mother of the preacher. He thinks for a minute about his response. He comes back and says, well, do you know who I am? She says, no. He says, good. I think that gets us into the right frame of mind. Geoffrey tells me I have an hour and a half to do this, so I appreciate the time. Yesterday as I was thinking about this, I was attending the Go Commando race. My wife rented it, and Russell Roberts rented it as well. I got to be at the finish line for both of them as they came across. If you've never seen Russell race or run, it is with grace, I can tell you that. But a fantastic event yesterday, and I was just thinking about the race. I was thinking about what these kids have done. But I want to start off by thanking Geoffrey for allowing us the opportunity to bring this event to you. I also like to say thank you to the eldership who was graciously allowed us to do this study and also bring this event to you today. Most importantly, I would like to thank Chad Chapman, who I met with multiple times discussing this idea, for allowing me the enormous pleasure of teaching our youth the book of Exodus. I think it was for a whole quarter, if I remember right. Is that correct? About 4.5 months? 4.5 month period. Took me a while to think about that. Before we get into the actual event and what these kids have done, I want to take you a little bit through a history of how this all came about. In 2007, I entered a small seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, that was sponsored by the Churches of Christ and the Independent Christian Churches. If you've never been to an Independent Christian church, I consider it about the same as a Church of Christ, just with instrumental music. It's about the same to me. One of the church sponsors was the largest Protestant church in the United States, or one of the largest, Southeast Christian Church. If you've never heard of Southeast Christian Church, when you go to Louisville, Kentucky, you travel down 64 toward the mainland, which I call Lexington, Kentucky, where the Kentucky Wildcats are. It sets off to the left. It's huge. You can't miss it. But they average around 22,000 people a Sunday at this church. In my first year, I had the pleasure of closely attending Old Testament studies taught by Dr. Chuck Lee, who was a former elder at Southeast Christian Church. Dr. Lee was instrumental in starting Southeast Christian Church. Bob Russell, which was the senior minister there, pulpit minister, if you will, he started Southeast Christian Church in his home, and then it grew rapidly into what some would deem as a megachurch, if you will. And Chuck Lee was there from the beginning. He was one of the first elders to serve that congregation. Dr. Lee taught me many things, and one of which was the history of the churches of Christ. And Geoffrey spoke a little bit about this just a few minutes ago. Our rich history of teaching the Bible. And I used to be told that when you come into a church of Christ, it's like going to a seminary class every Sunday. That is the history of the churches of Christ. Dr. Lee would tell us, when you leave here and you go and teach, as many people, when you go and teach as many people as you can about the greatness of our Lord, His love He has for us, and the importance of His Word. That last part was one He kept just beating into us every class. When I entered the ministry field as a youth minister in 2008, I made it a point to put what Dr. Lee said, as well as what Christ said, into action. One of the results was a study that I wrote called The Master of the Exodus. Since 2008, I've taught this study and given the follow-up test 6 times. At the beginning, it is about the introduction into the period of time Moses was revealing to us in his writings. Then we get into the study of the characters who are playing the parts in the Exodus theater. We discuss popular beliefs within the Christian community, whether we believe them or not. We discuss them. And some of those are predestination, foreknowledge, which can sometimes be mistaken for predestination, atheism, narcissism, and mankind. These are the things that these kids are studying as part of this test. We discussed these and many other at a college freshman level is what these kids were going through. These studies are important to understand the core foundation of the Christian heritage and belief. Today we recognize some of our youth who took this study seriously and saw it to the end. Again, 4.5 months of Exodus. However, at this time, I would like for all the youth in this room, just for a minute, if you will all the youth in this room that's in our youth program, please stand up. Don't be shy. All right. And please stay standing until I ask you to sit. Church, I'd like you to just take one moment, just a moment. I want every one of you, not the youth that are standing, but everybody else, I want you to take a minute. I want you to look around this room. Look around at these youth that are standing. And what do you see? You see the future of this congregation. You see the future of the Christian faith. Future leaders and teachers of our faith. Please remain standing. You see future leaders who may remain here. Some of these youth, well, all these youth, let's put it that way, will eventually leave and go to college. They might go to Austin Peay. They might go somewhere else. But some may remain here at Trenton Crossing or may go on to other congregations and do fantastic things. It is our responsibility of all of us to mentor and support these youth. We should encourage them and find any way we can to get involved. Every one of you in this room has something you can teach these young men and women. Every single one of you. There are many ways to get involved in this youth program. You know, I hear people say a lot of times, I have nothing to teach these kids. And what they're really saying is, I'm not comfortable teaching the Bible. Well, the Bible is only one aspect of what we teach our kids in our youth program. There's also this thing called life lessons. I tell my daughter all the time, when she starts arguing with me about something, and Caitlin knows this, I see her standing back there, I say, Caitlin, I've forgotten more than you know. Okay? And it's true. We all can say that. There are things that you can teach these youth about life. And I'm going to tell you up front, and you already know it, especially you that are older than I am, already have kids, it's left home and so on. This is the gospel. They will not listen to you. Okay? But they will remember it for when they're faced with a situation that you taught them something about. But you won't see the instant gratification of that. It will happen eventually. You can get involved in things like the crew teams that we have going on, and you can see Chad about that. If you don't know Chad, stand up for me for just a second. This is Chad Chapman, our youth minister. You can see Chad about that as well. But get involved in our youth program. Don't sit on the sidelines and complain about things that you think is going on, or say, I just have nothing to offer. I guarantee you, Chad has a place for you. Get involved in our youth program. You youth can sit down. Earlier this year, again, we embarked on a journey through the book of Exodus. One of my most favorite books of the Bible. Old Testament side, at least. And we learn a lot from the book of Exodus. We learn about a narcissistic person called, who guys? Who? Pharaoh. I call him narcissism because Pharaoh was so hung up that he was God that he refused to listen to Moses and Aaron as they're trying to prove to him through the miracles that God had given them that there is a God out there. Very narcissistic. We learned about what would be determined as not true atheism. We learned about all these different things. Some of our studies were fun, sometimes serious, and sometimes not so much fun. We had times when we would have strong and sometimes heated discussions about meanings of words and how they were translated to English. Overall, this was one of the best groups I have taken through this study. One person in our youth group that I have a lot of respect for as a youth is David Judd. Now, if you've never had an opportunity to debate David Judd, it is a journey within itself. Well, would you agree, Carl, excuse me. Yes, she's saying agreed, yes. But David has a zeal for learning the Bible. He does. And all you have to do is pick a topic that he might not completely agree with you on, and he will drive home his point, keep driving home his point. I loved it. I love debating with David. And again, one of the best groups I've taken through this study. You may be asking, what did the youth who completed the Master of the Exodus study accomplish? Well, I'm glad you asked that question. So let me give you just a little bit of information about this study. Again, 4.5 months of an in-depth study of Exodus from chapter 1 to chapter 12. Now, some might say, well, I know there's more than 12 chapters because our reading was from chapter 15 today. Well, as you may know, with kids, or young adults, if you will, that 4.5 months is a long time to stay focused. I don't take Ritalin, but for me to stay focused longer than 4.5 months on something, I'm going to need a lot of Ritalin. I'm just going to be honest with you. And so we didn't want to get too in-depth. We don't get too in-depth. And plus, about at that time, we're already past the Exodus. God has proven his point that the Israelites are starting to make their way out of Egypt. And we stopped there. Studying the Hebrew meaning of words. If you don't know how Hebrew language is spoken or anything, it's a little different. Working as a team during question and answer time. The goal of this study also was not necessarily just learning the book of Exodus in an important period of time, but it is about our youth group getting together and working as a team. This group is a team. They will forever remember each other as they leave and embark on new journeys into college life and so on. So it's about working as a team and taking the Master of the Exodus test. So the Master of the Exodus test, what is that? It consists of a 37-page long test, 211 test questions, of which 160 were multiple choice, 46 fill in the blank, one 175-word researched essay that they had to do at test time, and 4 bonus questions. The average test time for these youth was 4.6 hours to complete on a Saturday. Actually, across 2 Saturdays. Some youth came in on the second Saturday, couldn't make the first one. 4.6 hours, and believe me, they love Chick-fil-A, by the way, because we brought it in. That was a joke. Anyway, as I alluded to earlier, Dr. Lee rated this test as a college-level freshman study of Exodus. Out of the 22 youth that started this course, only 6 completed the study to the end and passed the test with a score of 80% or higher. Fantastic. These 6 youth have demonstrated the character and zeal to learn the Holy Scriptures. My prayer is that they will carry that zeal forward as they enter adulthood into the future. As I said earlier, this is the 6th time I have given this test. The group we are recognizing today for their studies and their completion of the work necessary to be called the Master of the X's contains a person who has scored the highest of any youth who has taken this test the past 6 times. An amazing accomplishment, to say the least. These youth have worked very hard, and they should be celebrated for their zeal, for their accomplishment, for their focus. At this time, when I call your name, at this time we will recognize these youth. So when I call your name, I would like the youth whose name was called and their parent or parents to come forth and receive the official Master of the X's certificate. When you come forth, please go to Chad, which is to my left, your right, and remain standing in front of the congregation. Chad will direct you until dismissed. Also, congregation, please refrain from any clapping or celebrating until all recipients have received their certificate. This is it, guys. Caitlin Green. Caitlin scored an awesome 83% on her Master of the X's test. Therefore, as recognized, she has completed in conjunction the Master of the X's course and has earned the right and privilege to be called a Master of the X's. This next individual I don't think is here, but we'll continue. Morgan Rollins. No, okay. Morgan scored a fabulous 84% on her Master of the X's test. Therefore, as recognized, she has completed in conjunction the Master of the X's course and has earned the right and privilege to be called a Master of the X's. This next individual cannot be here today because they are traveling. David Judd. David scored a commanding 86% on his Master of the X's test. Therefore, as recognized as he has completed in conjunction the Master of the X's course and has earned the right and privilege to be called a Master of the X's. Colin Cameron. Colin scored as well a commanding 86% on his Master of the X's test. Therefore, as recognized, he has completed in conjunction the Master of the X's course and has earned the right and privilege to be called a Master of the X's. Bailey Curry. Bailey scored an out of the park 95% on her Master of the X's test. Therefore, as recognized, she has completed in conjunction the Master of the X's course and has earned the right and privilege to be called a Master of the X's. This next youth member scored the highest ever on the Master of the X's test. To give you some food for thought, before this test was given, the average score was 88% on this test. We had 2 youth in this class scored above the average mark. One of them was Bailey, which scored above anybody out of the average. This next recipient is someone I could always count on to show up for class and be ready to dive in. This person also had no issues with speaking up in class when others were not doing what they were supposed to be doing. I think you probably know who I'm talking about by now. This person is very analytical in how he/she would approach the study and thoughtful in how he/she would ask questions. I'm not giving you any indication until I say the name. So it is with my great pleasure, at a commanding score of 97%. Therefore, it's recognized this person has completed in conjunction the Master of the Exodus course and has earned the right and privilege to be called a Master of the Exodus. Church, please celebrate with me with a round of applause. Cara Cameron. This was a great opportunity for myself. I had a lot of fun with it. Again, I thank Chad, the elders, Geoffrey, so on, for the opportunity to do this. Again, it was probably one of the best groups that we had, and 6 out of 20 is not a bad ratio. And hopefully we'll have a lot more if we do this study again. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, elders and deacons, it is with tremendous pleasure as I present to you the official 2017 Master of the Exodus recipients. Please join me in a moment of standing celebration for these recipients. Are you made to see it? Chad's asked me to make a few announcements, but before I get to that point, that is the conclusion of our presentation. When you see these young people out and about, or any young people from our youth group, please take a moment, say hello to them, talk to them, find out what's going on in their day, get to know them. They're a great group of kids. Get involved, as I said before. And again, Chad can help you with getting involved if you feel the need to do so. A couple things that Chad wanted me just to cover real quick while I was up here. The pancake breakfast, we are having a meeting about the pancake breakfast in the back. There's also a donation sheets over here for donations for the pancake breakfast if you want to look at those. And we'll have the sign-up sheets on the board or over here after today. But if you want to help with the pancake breakfast, please meet us in room 105, G105, in the back to my left. Thank you again for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
You know, I hope you'll feel challenged and inspired by all the work that these young people have put into just the study of the Word. We would all do well to spend more time just opening up this book and knowing what it has to say, and of course putting it into our lives. I'll share with you one thought from the 136th Psalm. He brought out Israel from among them with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm. That's why the people were able to exodus. Moses served his role. It was God. God is always the master of the Exodus. He's the master behind anything that we do that is good. He calls us to follow. We're going to sing this song right now. He leadeth me. Jesus calls. He's there in the lead, but he gives us the choice not to follow at all or to follow. And the call is to follow. If you haven't publicly committed your life to Jesus, to follow him, put him on in baptism, to come up from that water, rising to walk in new life, every Sunday we give you that opportunity. The invitation is always open. This is a matter of convenience, though. We formally extend it to ask for prayers, whatever might be on your heart, your mind. And the call is this, to make God, to make Jesus the master of your life. If you're ready to do that in a public way, come to the front right now while we sing this old song.